Welcome back to the SOMM TV Podcast. My name is Jason Wise. On today's pod, I'm going to speak with Syrah expert Claire Coppi about International Syrah Day, or, whatever. It's a great excuse to talk about one of the great grapes of the world and something we're all obsessed with. Yesterday on SOMM TV, we released a film that I hope many of you have started or watched called Saving the Restaurant, which is a look at a year of Master Sommelier Bobby Stuckey and the team at Frasca over in Boulder, Colorado, going through, the entire process of COVID and everything they went through, battling Congress, the whole thing. Really want to hear what you think of that. If you do not have SOMM TV, go to sommtv.com. It's $49.99 for a year where you can watch that and hundreds of hours of new content. Without further ado, I'm going to get myself in trouble speaking with Claire Coppi. Well, it's another International Wine Grape Day. And again, I always say I'm not going to cover these things, and then we do, but this one's special. There is almost no word you can say in the sommelier community that will elicit more turn-ons and orgasms than if you were to just go, Syrah.
Oh my God.
So here to talk about is Claire Coppi, our own SOMM TV's own Claire Coppi. I mean, how do you feel after that? Do you feel okay?
Aroused, Jason.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm in a state of arousal too. The is one of these grapes that people just obsess over. They freak out. They chase producers. It's like the movie Almost Famous, where like the Penny Lane and the groupies that just follow these bands around. Yeah. People were following Klopp and Cornas, just knocking on the door, trying to get in. The
groupies of the wine world.
The groupies of the wine.
The Mick Jagger of the wine world.
Of which I've been one.
Been one.
Am one. You're right. Am one.
Me too.
February 16th. I don't know what the significance of this day for being attached to a grape that is grown now worldwide. It makes no sense. But before we get further, I got to say, the producer of this podcast, it is her birthday. Happy birthday, Nadine Netman.
Happy birthday, Nadine Netman.
Who is listening and editing this podcast.
Yeah.
We love you.
I'm
sorry
too.
that you were overshadowed by a grape that is adored in the wine community. So Syrah, wow. I mean, it's true.
Wow.
It's Syrah. Look, so this particular grape is this like subject of like myth and lore and all of these things. Nobody totally knows where it came from. There's all these rumors it came from Iran and the town of Shiraz in Iran. I'm going to tell you that's utter bullshit, and that is not true. It did not come from Iran. There is a lot of things, in the second SOMM film, we sort of covered the myth of Hermitage, the Hill of Hermitage, with the knight who comes back from a crusade. It was not the crusade you're thinking of, but it was a crusade.
The second one.
No, it was way later. It was actually an Abyssinian crusade or something. But he came back and settled on that hill, was given that property, and voila, you have one of the great Syrahs of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So Claire.
Jason.
Starting to talk about Syrah.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the Northern Rhone. And you just recently wrapped a really, really wonderful closer look at Côte-Rôtie for SOMM TV, which is airing right now. Yeah. You can watch it with a very famous winemaker named Philippe Guigal. And if you've probably tasted Guigal's wines, even if you don't know what that name is.
For sure.
This is the family behind it. Yep. And so
big producer.
You and Philippe do a closer look at the region of Côte-Rôtie, and to celebrate that, I am drinking Côte-Rôtie right now.
Oh, you bad.
I am very
special.
What
Côte-Rôtie are you drinking?
I am drinking the remainder of the bottle that you opened on camera yesterday.
Interesting.
Yes.
Funny how that works out. Surprised there was any left, really.
I squirreled it away. So
I knew it.
We're going to go to the Northern Rhone. One thing we do know is that the Northern Rhone is, whether it's not the forever home of Syrah, but it is definitely the ancestral home that we know of for Syrah.
Yes.
Syrah is now all over the world. I'm going to let you take the mic and explain what you, working the floor for a very long time and having a grasp on this wine, would say about this grape.
Syrah it's just such a crowd pleaser, and it's made in so many different styles. You do have this iconic, beautiful style in the Northern Rhone, which then does break down into even more nuanced expressions as you go from the north to the south within the Northern Rhone. And then you've got much more, Syrah has the ability to be produced into much more luscious, dare I say, jammy expressions in some of the newer world regions. So it has such a huge spectrum of different styles. So it's really a grape that can please pretty much any palate, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
So if somebody, it's super food friendly, which is amazing. And I loved giving it to guests a lot of guests out there, they know Cabernet Sauvignon, they know Pinot Noir, which are two very different styles of wine. But they're the names that they're familiar with and comfortable with, and they might not understand or know Syrah as well. So it's kind of a fun medium between Pinot Noir and Cabernet. I'd be like, well, have you tried Syrah? Because it's not... Some expressions will be as light-bodied as some Pinot Noirs, but it's not going to be, it has a little bit more structure, a little more tannin, and a little, depends on the producer. I don't want to like put myself in the corner here. But it's not quite as large as, the styles of cabs that guests are used to.
Yeah, oftentimes it's very strange to me. Some regions, I'll call out Paso by name, does a lot of Rhone varietals, but they also do Syrah. You can find quite a bit in Paso. And sometimes, and I'm not going to call out producers here, but I will say with some producers, you drink their cab and you drink their Syrah and you're like, which one is which? They are both 15.9% alcohol and they are both extremely dark.
Yeah.
Now, that is not the case for all of Paso whatsoever. No. And some people like that style and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But there are also situations where you find Syrah, I'll call out Pax wines in Sonoma, where they're so balanced and some of his are a denser style. Some are very light. I mean, almost like, you hold a glass up and you can almost see through it. I don't know of a grape that is like Syrah, and having especially made the second
not
film.
Not a red grape.
No, not a red grape.
Maybe
for sure.
Chardonnay, but yeah.
Yeah, Chardonnay is a chameleon of a grape, or at least you can stretch it into so many different things. But with Syrah, we could do an entire podcast on the Northern Rhone. We could do an entire podcast on any individual one of these things. But
you could do an entire series on all the different regions making completely different styles of Syrah. It's insane.
You could go to Australia and you could do something on Shiraz and the different types of Shiraz and the misconceptions about what people think Shiraz is like versus what some people are doing with it. I think, I'm going to make a slightly bold statement here, but I think Shiraz is the ultimate winemaker's grape. I know that sommeliers, servers, wine collectors, drinkers, I think Syrah is this moment in drinking where you reach an evolution where you're like, it's sort of a top of the pyramid where everyone reaches this. I've seen it countless times. I've seen it with the cast of the films I've made where they get to this point and they say, Syrah is my favorite grape. And then they pass out on the couch naked. and but there's this point where you do it, but then you're also really, I don't mean snobby in a bad way, but you're kind of particular about what Syrah you're willing to drink. It's not just, you're not just going to let any old Syrah come into your house and sleep on your couch.
No.
You're going to make sure, and sometimes you're not even just going to let any old, Côte-Rôtie or any old Saint Joseph come into your house. You're going to be very particular about the producers or Crozes Hermitage or any of this stuff. And when we made the second SOMM film, I think was my moment when I had the 69 Chave Hermitage, which of course is like a unicorn. Oh. It's a unicorn of unicorns.
So jealous that you got to taste that.
I know, but it was for the film. It was for the great. And
nice.
But what it did though is it made me sort of like Doogie Howser in Syrah. So I was like a very young. I don't know. You're too young to know what Doogie Howser was. It was this show where a young doctor. I'm just joking. It made me that kind of thing where I was like way advanced for my age in Syrah, my age in wine drinking and wine knowledge. And after having that, it put me on a trajectory where I felt Syrah is this grape that can be a several $1,000 bottle of wine, but it can also be something that winemakers with talent can show an incredible amount of potential with the grape, even in some difficult sites. And I've seen it happen.
Oh,
and so it's not like if you grow Riesling in the slightly wrong place, I cannot overstate this. It is junk.
Yeah.
It is plonk.
It's pretty bad.
I mean, you just take it 2 ticks out of the region it should be in. You grow it somewhere that's too hot. There are ways around it, and good winemakers are good winemakers. But Syrah is one of these grapes that, it has a narrow bandwidth to be perfect, but it has a wide bandwidth to be good. Do you think that? Am I wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, this is all, of course, subjective, but it's subjective because I personally enjoy the more Northern Rhone style of Syrah. And again, that's a very wide net that I just said, very wide style of Syrah just within that region. But it has so much potential to just please everybody. There's a style of Syrah for every palate. I really do believe that.
I've never poured a glass of Syrah, especially from the northerner. I mean, in the Southern Rhone, it's a blending. You know,
Yeah.
I'm unaware of a lot of single bottlings of Syrah in the Southern Rhone. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
That's not
Mourvedre
where
and
it's-
Grenache and
Yeah.
But in the Northern Rhone, it's almost it's pretty exclusively outside of some co-fermentation with white grapes, Marsanne and Viognier being the main ones.
Mhm.
It's pretty much Syrah is the king. Nobody. I don't care if you have never had a glass of wine in your life. Nobody drinks that and says, I don't like this. They're, as you say, as a pleaser situation, they are very good. I think only, you know, good Pinot Noir from Burgundy stands on that kind of level where it's like, for the most part, if you're drinking it, you will like it.
Absolutely.
You don't want to know what it cost.
Figure that out later.
Yeah,
enjoy
figure
the
that
wine.
out later. Yeah, exactly.
But my father said that he doesn't like Syrah recently.
Like, have you sat down with him and actually given him some?
I did after that, because I was just like, oh, no, those are fighting words. And I do not accept that from my father. Absolutely not. Because he's like, I just think it's too peppery. He's like, I don't like that black pepper. And I think it was a Côte-Rôtie.
That was a really
that we
bad
drank.
Chicago accent right there. Because I feel like
that wasn't an accent.
I feel like your father's like Dennis Farina. He is like
he's not.
Okay, I just
He's this
picture
little
him that way.
Italian dude. He's we don't do the big Chicago like rounded, accent. No. But I think it was at Côte-Rôtie where, and we discussed this on our tasting, our closer look segment at Côte-Rôtie, that that black pepper is not as present in that wine, and it's very, very elegant. And he was like, yeah, actually, this is pretty good. He's just like, yeah. Dad.
Syrah though also has this weird thing where if you have Chardonnay or Cabernet, you're going to be able to sell it even if it's not great. I find that it's like this. Would you say that there's a grape recognition, like a name recognition?
100%.
Thing?
That's what I was saying. Like when guests come in, they're like, I like Pinot Noir and Cabernet because those are the two. They're comfortable with that. They know that, and they're everywhere. So it's just easy. I can just be like, oh, this is a Pinot, and most guests are gonna be like, great, love it, thanks. But Syrah's not quite there.
How do you feel about that,
I don't
Claire?
love that. I'm like, but let's talk about the nuance of the region and the village that it came from.
Most customers that are like sitting there arguing with their girlfriend or boyfriend are like, yeah, hold on, we'll stop a minute and let's talk about Condrieu.
No, I know some somms that would do that, but no.
Yeah, that's true. I do too. Actually, if they're arguing, you should probably interrupt them. That's a good call.
No, walk away. Let it happen.
Yeah, you're going to get a bad tip
yourself,
anyway.
Man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when drinking this, so I'm drinking Côte-Rôtie.
Nice.
Côte-Rôtie is it's special. In the first film, there is this story with now canceled Fred Day, may he rest in peace, and Shane Bjornholm and Master Somm are telling a story about a Jamais Côte-Rôtie that they drink, and while they're shooting halibut on a boat.
So good.
It's great.
Ugh.
It's great.
What year was it that they were drinking?
God, I'm sure
like
somebody listening.
Something.
No, wasn't that? No, it was. I don't even know the vintage of my own film, but it was. It had some age on it.
Yeah.
But for people to speak with that kind of reverence, and if you watch the second Somm film, for people to speak about Jean-Louis Chave, which their family goes back before America was founded. They've been making wine longer than the United States. They've been making wine longer than before Columbus, quote unquote, discovered a place that a ton of people already lived.
Destroyed the place.
They were making wine before that. So, I mean, it goes back to this brand recognition thing is kind of incredible. Syrah was made single varietal in a place like the Northern Rhone since the time of Columbus. Cabernet was not done singly until probably the 60s.
Yeah.
In the New World, 50s, whatever we want to say. And it's questionable. And yet, somehow, in all that time, it just took a snap of a finger for Cabernet to become this, that's your red
really
wine by the glass. And Syrah, but if you go to the Northern Rhone, I've been there several times now, and I've been so fortunate. It's a relatively industrial kind of a place. It's on a river.
Yeah.
People think of the Rhone, and it's this beautiful. Have you been there? I should ask.
I haven't yet. I haven't had the chance yet.
Oh, we got to remedy that. But if you go there, it's this kind of like, the rivers in France prior to the very, very recent modern era, that was the highway system.
Yeah.
The rivers connect everything in France, Germany. And so being on the Rhone would have been like being on, I guess you're in Chicago. So what that'd be the 80?
You're saying like the 90, 94?
The 90 that goes through Cleveland where I'm from.
It's the 101.
So, the 101? Yeah. But that's what it would have been like. I mean, you would have literally been on one of the great highways in Europe.
Yeah.
And so naturally you find a lot of industrial stuff. And the people there they're not what you expect. They're not this upper crust, it's a very different thing. They're very working. And I know that sounds
very rural.
It is, but it's also, they've got kind of there's a slightly hard edge to people of the Northern Rhone. And I mean that like they've earned it. They've been there for a long time. They're slightly insular.
Sure.
It's not like every wine region, especially in France, has its own character and this beautiful kind of quality. And I think the Northern Rhone, its quality is that they've been fighting for a very long time. And even still, even though Cuvée Catalan from Chave costs $4,000 a bottle in some cases, they're still fighting for Syrah to be a thing that is recognized in the average, normal, everyday life.
Which, it's just so, it's all just, it's so much of it is just the marketing, right? And you have the Asian market that's they'd inflated the Bordeaux market and then the bottom dropped out from that and now it's Burgundy. So maybe next to Syrah, maybe that's the next great, because when you taste a great, perfectly aged bottle of a Northern Rhone wine, I tasted I think it was a 98 or 99 Jamais Côte-Rôtie when I was working at Republique, and the guests who purchased it were kind enough to pour me like a half glass.
That's great.
And they're like, go enjoy it. It was awesome. Love those guys. Shout out to you. I hope you're both doing well. And it was just divine. And it was divine the moment it was opened. And then, I let it sit there for an hour and holy crap, it was good. It was just, I can't even really describe it because it becomes this, I know it sounds so like romantic and ridiculous, but it becomes this kind of otherworldly divine experience when you just taste something so brilliantly perfect and you're capturing this moment in time that all these people intended, for this moment to happen in my life, but like years ago, and they put all their love and energy into this bottle and it's so special. So I want more people to fall in love with Syrah because it really deserves it.
Do you see how turned on sommeliers get when they talk about this?
I just start breathing really heavy.
They can't handle it. When it comes to this, though, there is, if you line up 5 Syrahs, let's say you take, let's name 5 that are really, I guess, well known. You take Penfolds, Shiraz,
sure,
and you take Chave Hermitage, which is an expensive bottle, requires age. It's a big, forceful bottle of wine. You take like a Pax wine from Sonoma, which is really, really a stupendous bottle of wine. I recommend it strongly.
For
you
sure.
Take, Carol Meredith's Syrah from Napa. It's big, it's powerful, but it's a really good bottle of wine. But it's a good representation of a style that's different than Pax's because it doesn't have the restraint, but the age-worthiness it certainly has, and it's really, really, really delicious. And you take all of these things, it's almost like you can't believe these are the same grape. And yet they all have this quality that is the same. And that's what I'd like. I wonder if you can answer this. What is the singular quality that Australian Shiraz, Côte-Rôtie that does have a little bit often of a white grape that's co-fermented, very small amount, 5% or so, and Hermitage, and what is the thing that makes Syrah Syrah? Okay, Syrah.
I knew that was going to come into this at some point. Jesus.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't be sorry. Own it.
I'm just trying to make my mom laugh. She's the only one listening.
Nice. What is the one through line of all Syrahs? Maybe a savoriness or a florality. I don't know.
This glass in front of me, I smell it. It smells like a glass of fruity bacon. And I say that with like, smoky. And so is that what you mean by the savory thing?
Yeah, that there is that, not umami, but almost borderline that,
It's got,
yeah, I wonder how it is today.
It's delicious. It's fantastic.
It was delicious yesterday.
But it does have this it's interesting to have this, like, I hate the word like masculine, feminine for wine. I can't stand it. It also doesn't really have a lot of meaning. It doesn't mean shit.
That's true,
but
actually.
Occasionally, though, you'll taste a wine and your brain goes towards those two things. Yeah. It's probably because you've heard it so many times.
For sure. Yeah, maybe that's something we need to stop using and leaning on so much for our tasting notes.
I just mean it like because it just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It's just like, it's not like I completely respect that that's an issue, but I also think the issue is also that is just a bullshit term, but when you do smell this, your brain goes towards this, like, is it lighter and floral or is it, what is it? And this has all the qualities of both sides. It's a very interesting dichotomy of having both of the you say savory, and if you were to say to somebody, this wine is savory, enjoy, it's like, what am I drinking? Bone broth? Like, what does that mean? But this wine, honestly, is very savory. It's got a very smoky, kind of like deeply meaty.
Yeah, and that's something that honestly it attracted me, because I remember watching SOMM Into the Bottle well before I had ever met you, or when I was still just starting out and trying to learn. And I love Into the Bottle. I've probably watched it like 10 times. But
that's cool.
Listening to, I love it. It's my favorite. And listening to Brian McClintock describe Syrah, and I think particularly Chave, he was talking about his experience of falling in love with Syrah. And it was a Chave, of course. And I remember him describing this smoked meat quality. And I was like, the fuck? Wine? And then I got to experience that myself. And I'm like, well, that is so cool. Like, how'd that get in there? So I think that there is just an inherent savoriness to the grape.
There is. And the wine itself can age forever. I mean, forever. Sure. I cannot believe.
It benefits from it.
It really does.
Yeah.
I know that we're just like all over the map in a free-form conversation about Syrah, but
Syrah's all over the map.
Syrah is. We did a vertical season 1. The very first episode of our flagship wine show on SOMM TV was with Lager Meredith. So Carol Meredith, who's been in the SOMM films, and her husband Steve Lager, they make wines all by hand at the top of Mount Veeder. And their Syrah, their first vintage, I've been lucky enough to have it twice. And I think it's 98. And I will tell you something. That wine, with the age, is this kind of like, it's wholly American, it's wholly New World, but it's also, you taste it and it laser beams you right back to Hermitage. And it smells like it, it tastes like it, it's powerful. That wine, which is a 98 now, I bet you that Carol Meredith Syrah could go another 25 years before we start saying, how long could this go?
Yeah.
That's the point when I think it's got so much to it.
Absolutely. And when you have those bigger, beefier expressions, the benefit of time is huge, I think. Because I've tasted some of I think I tasted like a young coupe Syrah, and it's just like, it just blows your face off because it's higher in alcohol and it's just ginormous, and it does the wine a disservice. And then I had it, like a 2000, and I was like, there it is. And it could have gone, like you said, another like 20 years. And that's how that is meant to be. That's when it's
really
best.
Is. It really is.
Yeah.
I think that Syrah is made by winemakers outside of the Northern Rhone because of love. You're not making it to jump on a bandwagon. No. I hope this never changes. I really do. I hope this stays as a grape for a very long time that is a passion-driven. I make Syrah because I love Syrah. I hunted for the place I wanted to grow Syrah. And I know in the case of Pax, that is very much the case. He fought very hard to grow this grape. He has overcome incredible boundaries when it comes to, the point scoring and critics and all the bullshit you have to deal with when it comes to being a winemaker. He's probably had to deal with sommeliers and their opinions, which...
Gross.
But Syrah is one of those things. That's why I started the podcast asking, about the proverbial like wine turn on with Syrah. Because when I talk about it, when I think about it, when I think about the places it's grown, it automatically makes me want to go there, makes me want to drink it.
For sure.
Whereas with Cabernet, I love it. But Cabernet doesn't have the same kind of inherent, it has better brand recognition, but it doesn't have the identity. It doesn't have the like, I'm from a place.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Am I an asshole?
No, well, that's a different question for another podcast. Is Jason Wise an asshole? Whole other story. I mean, Cab has its identity. It has its markers for sure. It has, it has its own soul and it has its own identity. I don't think we should strip Cab of its identity.
No, that's not what I mean.
Because it's the cool kid at school.
but I mean, it's not like a part of Bordeaux said, we are no longer blending.
Right.
We are going to make Cabernet. It is going to be single varietal no matter what happens. And that's what makes Bordeaux so great, is you can change the blend, you can adjust, Cab Franc and Petit Verdot and all of these wonderful things that help add a different nuance to the wine.
Yes. But when you have this pure thing.
If you're in Saint Joseph and you have a shitty vintage, hey, guess what? You have to adapt as a winemaker. You're not hiding anywhere.
No.
Before we're done, I do want to touch on Australia. I want to talk about Australia as a whole and the perception. Now, you and I are Americans. We are going to take a certain type of a viewpoint into a discussion about Australian Shiraz.
Yeah.
So is Shiraz Syrah? We'll start there.
Who's saying that it's not?
Well, no, nobody. I mean, it's genetically though. I mean, why don't they call it Syrah? What's the point? Why Shiraz?
I think there actually might be a real answer to this. So I'm pulling this out of places right now to give it its own sense of place for Australia, detached from the old world, so that it is, is there an actual answer to this question?
I'm sure there is, but the question I want to ask before we get to what the answer is how do you feel about that?
I don't really care. I mean, look, how many different names are there for Tempranillo and every single effing grape? There are so many synonyms for all of these grape varieties. So, Syrah, Shiraz. It's kind of funny with guests because they're like,
does this make your job harder? Does this make your job harder or does it make your job easier because you have stuff to explain?
Maybe a little harder, but then I get to do my job and explain it and inform someone. I mean, that's my job. If everybody knew everything, it'd be really boring.
Yeah.
Those are my least favorite guys when they're like, I know everything about this. And it's like, okay, have fun.
Yeah.
Gonna go
have fun. Just
talk about Shiraz over here. Love the corkage you brought in.
What's your experience with Shiraz? So when we talk about that as a grape, I mean, we have we've dealt quite a bit with Penfolds, and that was also in the second film. Yeah. And they're always and I think that this drives Australians a little nuts because for Penfolds to be your true north, which I think Penfolds deserves to be a true north, especially if you're not Australian. But there's a gigantic world outside of Penfolds when it comes to the Shiraz situation.
Absolutely.
What should people do with Australia? What should we do? Where do we start? How do we
drink their wines?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, they get, I think I don't know why, but they don't get a ton of love from a lot of the sommeliers that I know.
Except for Grenache. I know a lot of people who worship the
Grenache.
The really low alcohol.
Oh yeah, those are
kind
sexy.
Of Grenache stuff, which is delicious, by the way. But
so delicious, so quaffable. But yeah, they get kind of a bad. The Shirazes, a lot of SOMMs don't love, just because they are so drawn, I think, to the Northern Rhone style, which is not the same. But again, I think these wines, like we were saying in California, the bigger Syrahs that need a little time. I think the Shirazes just need a little bit of bottle age. I had, I can't remember the vintage, a slightly older, by far, Shiraz. And that was sexy. Oh my goodness, that was so good. You had their Pinot Noir in SOMM 3.
That's right. Oh, you're talking
nailed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're talking, by far. They are
so good.
And that is but that is the way they're making wine is part of, I think, a global movement of trying to take back, it's funny because I look at it very much as the winemakers would say we're trying to let wine be made by the ground. Mm-hmm. We're trying to let wine be made by the process and not the winemaker. I look at it strangely as the winemaker actually making a decision to do this. And so I look at it as much more winemaker focused wines because the previous style I'm so used to and just expect this big jammy type stuff, which I'm not going to say there's any less merit to a wine like that in the right situation, especially with age, than there is the other one. Right. But I'm definitely not drinking that on a Tuesday night with,
No. Nothing.
Nothing. Well, yeah, I mean, they're big and big is not necessarily bad. It's just, I find it surprising so much if it gets sold because the application of it is so much lower, I find. I don't mean this.
Well, it follows this trend of the bigger, more extracted wines that people love. I just did that article on lighter bodied red wines for our magazine because so much of the time guests want the big, jammy red, which is completely acceptable and fine. And
why are we so nervous to say we hate this wine? Do we hate this wine?
It has its place. I just don't. I don't enjoy drinking it all the time because it's exhausting.
Yeah,
it's high alcohol. It's a lot of fruit. It's just a lot. It's like a backhand to and that sounds really douchey. It's like a backhand to my palate, but it's just a lot. It's like bombarding me, and then
Syrah is the perfect grape to have this conversation with, though, for real, because it's so much more than any other grape that I can name. I mean, Grenache is an argument, but Grenache is another whole other conversation with the fact that it is mostly blended and all these things. Syrah can be, as you said at the top of the podcast, this very light, I'm trying to think because I don't want to say anything. It can be a very approachable, something that is accessible, but it can also be this huge monstrosity.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean monstrosity in a bad way. I mean, I have had, that Penfolds Bin 60A, the 1962 that's in SOMM 2, is one of the, if not the greatest, the most interesting wines I've ever tasted in my life. You know,
is that 100% Syrah, by the way?
I highly doubt it. I mean,
because they blend a lot with cab, right?
I think there's cab in it. I think that for the most part,
which is something else to say about that.
Yeah, wine. I mean, it's always weird. I mean, I remember getting into wine and being very prickly about like, you're not allowed to blend Syrah with things like Cabernet and thinking I was like cool by saying bullshit like that. When truthfully, like Syrah is blended with all sorts of things in the Southern Rhone and in the Languedoc and all over. And there are a lot of winemakers in the United States who are co-fermenting. I mean, Pax does a Syrah and Viognier and so it's not like it's, you know, I would say way more of it is blended on an exponential level above pure Syrah. Probably pound for pound, liter for liter, gallon for gallon. Yeah. So I always thought like, you know, you can't blend it with cab. And then of course, Australia is the place that made me realize like, first of all, I don't know shit about wine and I never will. And that's always going to be the case, no matter how much I taste, no matter how many people I meet, no matter how inspired I am.
Never going to know it all.
How many films we do. The fun thing about this is you're still chasing something that's unobtainable, which is to just experience more and know more. And Cab and Syrah, you know, if made in a similar style, they blend well. But it also produces a style that you and I may not like if done a certain way.
Yeah. And it's something that the wines that I tend to enjoy are something that I can pour a glass of and I can just sit back and enjoy it without food. Whereas those big boys, I need some to stand up to that.
Yeah,
you know,
need
like
carbs.
I feel like I'm getting bullied and I need carbs and I need meat in my corner to help me fight this wine.
I've seen your bumper sticker. I need carbs and I need meat. I've seen that
carbs
before.
and meat.
Yeah.
All
right. So I want to do something before we get off. I want to do something, and that is price point.
Yes.
I'm going to name a price point, and you're going to tell me a part of the world I should buy, whether it's blended or straight, a Syrah from. Okay.
Okay.
I have under $20.
Okay.
I want to drink Syrah, whether it's pure or straight. What region is the best place to get an under $20 bottle of Syrah?
I say Languedoc, France.
Okay. And what would it be called? How would I find it?
What would be called? How would you find it?
Yeah. What would it say on the label if I was going to buy a Syrah?
You can look for, they have all their different regions, but you can look for Languedoc on the label because a lot of those under $20, they're probably going to be from the larger regions like the Côte de Languedoc. But they might be coming from some smaller regions as well. You might be getting some from Le Clap.
Would it say Syrah?
Usually, you know what? In the Languedoc, they're starting to put on the back labels, they're actually starting to put the varieties on there and the breakdown of the blends because they're such a great region full of warm people who don't want to alienate the market and they want to make it, you know, a little more friendly. So a lot of times it'll say it on the back for Languedoc.
Yeah. In my lifetime, I will watch the Languedoc become a region that the wines, there are some very expensive wines there, but often they're still
cheap though for what they are.
They're still cheap. That's true. They really are. But also they don't have the advantage of being like multi-generational brand building where they've gotten expensive the way, you know, some of the wines have in the modern era. And they will. That'll happen in my lifetime.
Unfortunately.
It will, very unfortunately, because it is a region that top to bottom, if you
happy for them, they deserve it.
They're also, you got to put the work in to know the producers, but you can get some really great wines.
Yes.
All right. So I got $20 to $30. Where do I go?
20 to 30. You know, they might be slightly more expensive than this, but I've had some really great Syrahs from Santa Barbara. Like cool climate Syrahs. They make them in the warmer regions like Happy Canyon and Ballard Canyon where you're getting a lot more of the Bordeaux blends. But there are some really cool climate Syrahs from Santa Rita Hills. Story of Soil is one that comes to mind.
And can you get it for $30, you think?
Actually might be a little more pricey with her wines there because she makes so little of it. But like Presqu'île, I think, does a Syrah for...
Presqu'île's great. That's great. I don't know how much it costs, but it can't be much more than 30. Maybe it's 40.
So.
The Camins de Dreams. The Camins de Dreams, which is made by Tara Gomez and her wife, Maria.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the great American Syrahs. And on top of it, I mean, the story behind it, Vertical Season 2, we covered Tara Gomez, and it is one of the great stories in wine. My favorite stuff doing SOMM TV, and I'm sure people, who my mom's still listening. One of the great things about SOMM TV is that we get to tell these stories, but my favorite stuff are the ones where you could make a feature film about the story, but you can tell somebody you don't have to watch any of that shit. Taste this,
God, yeah.
And when it has a story good enough to make a 60 or 80 minute film, but also you could throw that away and taste the wine and go, holy shit, this is amazing. That's Camille's to
All of her wines. Like,
all of her wines.
Crap, they're good.
She is, a native winemaker, an indigenous winemaker, and overcame so much to do what she's doing. Yeah. But also, again, the product is stands on its own. It's incredible. So that would be mine. I just don't know how much that actually costs. I think Sashi Mormon's Annika Syrah is really good too. That's probably closer to 40.
Tara's, I was going to say they might be a little closer to 40, just again, because they're taking such care with these wines and putting so much hard work into it. And it's small. It's small.
Okay. All right. So $30 to $40. You gonna stay in Santa Barbara, or are you gonna go somewhere else?
I would still stay in Santa Barbara.
They are. For sure. You're gonna stay in the United States.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying I would, but I don't need to. I'm trying to think. I've had so much Syrah now. I mean, there's some decent ones actually up in Washington State.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually agree with you. There's some great ones up there. Red Mountain makes some great. There's the little tiny AVA of Red Mountain makes great Syrahs.
I haven't had nearly enough, but
yeah, they do make some good stuff.
They can be a little beefier too, depending on the producer. But
some of them are if you spill it on your arm, all your hair is gone. It's like Nair. No, I'm just kidding. It's nice. Really good. So at what price point do we go to France? So if I was going to say
we're starting to get into it. Like the 40 to 50.
40 to 50, we can go to France?
Yeah, we can start getting some
Saint-Joseph.
Yeah.
Are we going to Saint-Joseph?
We can do that, or you can go to Australia and get some by far. I think that might be 50 to 60 though.
Yeah, they don't make a ton. They don't.
This is my wistful thinking.
By far, again, one of the wines in SOMM 3, and they deliver.
They make great Viognier too, and I don't usually love Viognier.
You hold that Viognier thought. We are literally going to have a Viognier. I mean, I am tired of people bad-mouthing Viognier. I am here for Viognier. And I'm going to have Shakira Jones and I are going to go at it on the SOMM TV podcast. I'll talk to you off the air, whether you're pro or con.
Sure. I can never say I hate something because I know there's something out there that's going to prove me wrong. So,
well, then you can't be on this pod. We need to have more opinionated people. Enough. Yeah, you're not.
But yes, now I think we're starting to be able to go visit France.
Okay,
the Rhone.
At what price point, and you have all the money you want, are you going to Cornas? Or Hermitage or Côte-Rôtie? So when do we start going to that place? You
can start getting some of those.
But where you have the money. I'm talking about you. I'm not saying you can buy it. I'm sure you can buy it.
Over 100 for sure.
Okay, so wait, if you had $120 in your pocket, you would go, and what you say, you have to buy Syrah. You would go to one of those regions. Where would you go? And what would you buy?
I do love Côte-Rôtie. You know who's a really good producer that does not get enough love? Definitely gets love from the SOMM community, but Levé. Have you had Levé?
Yeah, let's not call these names out because people will buy them, and then they will start getting more expensive.
They're terrible. They're terrible. I wouldn't give them $20 for that swill.
Yeah, right.
I love you so much, Levé.
All right, so 120. You're in France, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Côte-Rôtie is a good spot, like we talk about this on the segment, because you can drink them, like Hermitage, Cornas, you can drink them young if you want, but it's going to be pretty intense. Yeah. So they need some time. So you can drink Côte-Rôtie young, again, like we mentioned, Syrah benefits from age, but you can drink Côte-Rôtie young. You're doing it right now, and it sounds like it's very pleasant.
I won't lie to you, it's wonderful. It's a 2017, it's great. Yeah. I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
There you go. So yeah, because it's a little more approachable in its youth. So I wouldn't feel bad spending money on, something and then committing infanticide.
God. All right, so last question.
Yeah.
What is the most amount of money you would personally spend of your own money on a bottle of Syrah? Like your own money, like literally you are going to put the cash down. I don't have much
of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I'd probably be somewhere in the $200 to $300 range, but it would have to be for a special occasion.
You could do a lot with $250.
I could do a lot with that. Now, I'd rather somebody just give it to me.
Easy Jamé. You can get Jamé for that price for sure. You can do Clap Cornas. You could not do Chave Hermitage. That's not happening.
No, I could not. Alas, I could not.
You could not. Okay. You couldn't even do the white, which is even rarer than the red. You couldn't do that.
Oh my God, no. I wish. There's some Gigel as well.
You could definitely do some Gigel. Interesting.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Syrah, a grape that elicits
it's lusted after
lust and strange behavior from?
It's hot. It's just so hot.
It is hot. So hot right now.
It's a wonderful. It's so hot right now. That's Syrah. So hot right now. Yeah. It's a grape with wonderful range, wonderful pairability, and it's just downright sexy. I would say drink more of it, but I want it all for myself. So ignore everything that we just said.
Yeah, don't drive the price up anymore, people. Let's keep this a secret.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say Happy International Syrah Day. Every time I say one of these things, it just sounds like what? Happy International Syrah Day and happy birthday to this podcast producer Nadine Netman.
Woo-hoo!
And Claire, it's great to talk to you.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. I am going to go probably drink more Syrah right now, as I assume you guys are teeing yourselves up to do. Don't forget, go to SOMMTV.com and watch Saving the Restaurant. It's a film that is not just worth watching, but a really important topic and something that I just don't think anybody else captured this way. On this Friday coming up, our podcast, I'm going to be talking with my good friend, New York sommelier, restaurateur, Yannick Benjamin, who's probably one of the nicest, greatest humans in this entire business. You don't want to miss that. We get into some good hijinks. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Be safe.